Daniel, I understand that you are a huge David Fincher fan. That's correct. Okay. So we have a quote here from David Fincher to start our interview. And if this is from Brainy Quote, so hopefully it's correct. It says this, some people go to the movies to be reminded that everything is okay. I don't make those kind of movies. Any thoughts on this quote as it relates to your work?
I would agree with that, but I think that that goes much further back than that. That good drama to me is about conflict. So it has to be about stakes. So it very quickly tends to be about life and death, kind of a thing. You know, the feel-good movies are probably dealing with that a little bit less, and they find other things that they're giving the audience, humor and kind of that wholesomeness feeling. I like the stakes thing a lot, and I think what Fincher does really well, what very few people do, is that you don't know whether it's going to end well or badly. Like, he has made movies that have done either. So if I go and see a Fincher movie today, I genuinely don't know if the protagonist is going to be okay at the end of the movie. And that is something that I would love to have in my own movies, obviously, because that is the ultimate suspense, to do that to an audience. Whereas I think with most filmmakers, 99% of filmmakers, you probably know that the protagonist is going to be okay in the end. And then the other percent, you know that it's going to be a dark ending, a horror ending, a kind of, you know, and Fincher has that great balance. So that is definitely something to aspire to, I think.
Well, they say that most of these blockbuster films are made for the middle states, and they're made by people on either coast. And I'm butchering that quote. But do you think that most people who aren't in the arts, the people that maybe just want a neat ending, always feel that way? I know I'd asked someone who said they had a condo in Park City, and I said, oh great, you get to go to Sundance, you don't have to worry. He goes, I hate those movies.
Oh.
I said, you do? How could you hate? He goes, I want to have a nice, clear ending. I want to be happy. I want to be uplifted in the end.
Okay.
I don't feel that way, but...
I think with me it depends on the day. There are days where I very much feel that way. And I'm looking at a synopsis for a movie and it sounds intelligent and thought-provoking, and I'd rather go to the dentist than watch that movie on that day, because it's just, you know, too deep and will involve me too much. And some days I want that kind of feel-good movie. And then there are other days. My favorite movie this year is The Lobster. Have you seen The Lobster?
No.
Incredible. And it's one of those movies where from moment to moment you have no idea what's going to be next, but every single one of them is uncomfortable. But you're so engaged in what's going on because it's a story that you have never lived through before, whereas 99% of other stories you've lived through before with different actors, with slightly different storylines, but you kind of are in familiar waters. And I think if a movie can put you in unfamiliar waters, that in itself is such an achievement that it doesn't matter whether it's a good ending or a bad ending or whatever. The experience that you're being given for your $10, I think is worth every penny.
Is it because, and this sounds so trite, but it reminds us of life, but it's not our life. We're watching someone else go through the fact that most human lives, that's our day. We're never sure from moment to moment,
right.
Is this going to turn out well? Is the car in front of us going to cut us off? Is this person actually not a friend? You know.
Yeah.
But that's life, but then we get to watch someone else go through it.
And we get to take something away from it. I think what we really want to do is that we see ourselves reflected in that struggle somehow and leave the theater with some insight that we didn't have before. And I don't know if it's necessarily important that that protagonist who was the vehicle for us to have that insight leads a happy life after the movie or doesn't lead a happy life after the movie, as long as I feel it was a rich experience that makes me a slightly different person walking out than I was walking in. But it's interesting that you're saying that about life, because I always have that argument with genres, because life isn't one genre, right? Life is funny and life is scary and life is sexy and life is blah, 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 all those things. And yet movies, for some reason, and marketing presses us into this one genre. We have to decide. The worst thing that can happen to us when we develop stuff is that we're in between genres, that it's unclear whether it's a thriller or a drama. Like every marketing person will immediately tell you that is poison and you have to go either clearly the one way or the other way. And even if you don't and you deliver a movie that is in between genres, they will make sure to make it look like a specific genre. They will decide in marketing, the marketing department will say this is a thriller and will just take the moments that look like a thriller and put them together. And I think that's when you get an unhappy audience because they were coming in with one mindset and then they were delivered something else. But I always love movies that stay within the genre, deliver that promise, but also give you sparkles of that real life that actually jumps genres.
Well, it reminds me of David Foster Wallace. He wrote the book Infinite Jest, and he did an interview and he said he wrote an article on going on a cruise, which he said was the most excruciatingly painful experience for him because they, quote, forced you to have fun.
Right.
And then they would check in. Are we having fun yet?
Yes,
and we're going to do all these fun things on this itinerary for the day. Does it almost feel like that with certain films where they're forcing you?
I think that is scary about the comedy, when they always say that comedies are harder to make than anything else, which I believe, because it's all about timing and about precision and all that, and making it look easy and effortless. But the other thing is that the audience knows at every moment what you're going for. They know in every moment you're trying to make them laugh and have them have a good time, which in a drama or in a thriller, I don't have to lay my cards on the table that much and say, and now I'm going to try to make you laugh. Let's see if this works. And every failure is blowing up right in your face. You know, that's not the case. Maybe with a thriller a little bit because they know you're trying to create suspense, but it's more an overall, over the entire narrative kind of moment of effort rather than a moment by moment effort. Whereas in a comedy, you know when a joke doesn't land, you know, and it's painful. And I'm glad that I'm not making comedies and I don't have to subject myself to that kind of inspection.
Yeah, it reminds me of the Have a Nice Day t-shirt. So for a while that was really big in like maybe the late 70s, 80s. And then there was this backlash. Don't tell me what kind of day to have.
Right, nice, exactly, exactly. And that's what you want from your movies. Or at least you want movies, I think that's the whole manipulation discussion. I do think that storytelling is inherently manipulative. Of course, you want the audience to have a certain experience and you're trying as a storyteller to get as much of a grip on the audience to steer them through the experience that you want them to have. But if they realize that you're doing that, I think there is a resistance to it. And they are going to put on the t-shirt, don't tell me what kind of day to have, don't tell me how to feel, you know. And the worst thing that can happen, I forget what I just saw that did that, is where the protagonist is always half a step ahead of the audience emotionally. Like that person is already crying because something sad is happening, but as an audience, I haven't caught up yet, so I don't get to actually experience the sadness. I only get to experience that protagonist's reaction to the sadness, and I immediately see my wall going up and go like, aha, the movie wants me to feel sad. Screw you, you know, I'm not gonna feel sad. And I think that's another timing thing that goes for every genre, that you have to time the experiences and the reactions of the people in the story to what you think will be the rhythm of the audience, which is really hard to predict, I think. And that's why editing, when people always say the film is made in editing, I think that's definitely true for the rhythm of it all, because you have to anticipate when the audience will arrive at what point and when you can shoot the next particle of information or emotion at them. And if you get that wrong, then it's like a dance rhythm that is slightly off, you know. And I think that's the difference between a good editor and a bad editor. And then you do test screenings, and then you learn that the audience dances to a completely different beat than you thought they would, and then you recut the whole thing until you are kind of in step with your audience, I think.